Chapter 4. The Realization of Our Dream. And what you can see here in the program when you open up the map for Chapter 4 are two images called the 4 steps right way and the 4 steps wrong way. Now I have these same images in Chapter 10 all over again as a reminder once you get to that point. However, now I want you to look at the first image, the right way. Well, it starts out with number 1 at the top, imagination, number 2, thoughts, number 3, emotions, and number 4, actions. As it says at the bottom, these are the 4 most important steps. This is the process we have to consciously follow. So now look at the second image called the wrong way. There's only one difference, or actually two, with the text in the top and the text in the bottom. So number 1 says current results, circumstances, and then the text in the bottom says these are the 4 steps most people live by. This process keeps us stuck since we are not imagining beyond our current results. So in other words, this picture shows you how the average person lives. This is how I used to live, and this is maybe how you are still living. You let the current results and circumstances control your thoughts, and then that controls the way you feel, and that also controls the way you behave. In other words, what sort of actions you're involved in. If we want to improve our lives, all throughout this program I talk about imagination. This should give you a sort of visual idea. It's a simple idea, but it's still strong and very helpful on how you should go about changing your life. So you look at the picture again called the right way, and you see you have to start out with imagination. So no matter what your circumstances are right now, if they're bad, if they're horrible, you gotta imagine yourself beyond these circumstances, so it starts to influence your thinking and then your emotions, and then it starts to influence your behavior altogether. Again, in other words, your actions. And as I stated in the previous book, The Miracle of Wanting, and I can state it again, it is of course the actions we're involved in that determine the results we get in life. So you can just imagine after number 4, somewhere between number 4 and number 1, you can just imagine number 5, and it says results, because that's what we ultimately want to change. And this is this process you need to follow in order to make that change occur within your own life. So keep these images where you can look at them frequently, because they're very important to remind yourself on how you should operate throughout your days. The realization of our dream boils down to a certain result. For many people, a dream is something gigantic, something special. It's amazing we can turn our dreams into reality, but we shouldn't make it bigger than it really is. Once you achieve your dream, it simply means you've created a new result. Whenever we're thinking about our dreams, we don't want to overcomplicate things. If we look at it from the standpoint of it being a result, it becomes a lot easier to stay on the right track. I want you to study the following process carefully and write it down somewhere. And as I stated in the beginning, you also have 2 images that are part of this process. So instead of just seeing it in letters, you actually see it as a circle in those images. Because that is what it is. A sort of spiral. 1, 2, 3, 4 steps that we need to follow in a certain order. Now your imagination influences your thoughts. Your thoughts influence your emotions. Your emotions influence your actions. And your actions create the result. This shows step by step how the creative process works. However, it's important to remember that the emotional aspects play the most important role. When you desire to achieve something, it will influence both your emotions and thoughts. In the end, what we really want to be focused on is how we feel and think. Now, if you only work with one aspect of your inner potential, you won't be effective. What do I mean by that? If, for example, you're only thinking about your dream without any emotional reaction within the very depths of your being, you won't be motivated towards the right forms of action. On the other hand, if you're only desiring emotionally to achieve your dream without consciously thinking about it and paying attention to the ideas you receive, again you won't be led to the right forms of action. A few years ago, I wrote in another book that there's a certain reaction that takes place between thought and emotion. The way you feel influences how you think just as much as how you think will influence how you will feel. I suggest you try to remember this whenever you feel bad or think negative stuff. The realization of your dream depends on the steps mentioned above. You start with your imagination and build a vision. This vision will turn into a mental picture. This mental picture influences your thoughts, and in other words, it influences the ideas that you will think about. This then will cause the emotional desire for the realization of your dream and motivates you towards newly inspired forms of action. And then finally, what happens once we're doing this? Oh, that's right. The results changed into something different, something better. In the book The Miracle of Wanting, I dedicated an entire chapter to our sensory factors and how we are using them to work against ourselves. Which process are most people following? Can you guess it? If not, here's your answer. Now, this is based on the picture that came with this chapter and how we're doing it in the wrong way. Now, this person, and this might be you, or people you know about at least, they let their current results influence their thoughts, and then their thoughts influence their emotions, and their emotions influence their actions, and then their actions create the results. Now, can you see the difference? What we're describing here is a person that's letting their current circumstances influence their inner world of thought and emotion. He or she is aware of their current limitation. They give all their attention to the obstacles and think of all the reasons why it's impossible to achieve their dreams. And this causes their current results to influence their minds, causing a spiral of the same results over and over again. These people don't think and act from imagination. They think and act according to current circumstances. What we want to learn is to think and act from our imagination so our results can drastically improve. If we function like this, it means we're letting our minds be guided by our dream, and it's the only way results can change into something better. Through this method, we won't be repeating the same pattern. Have you ever noticed how many things we repeat day in and day out? We all have certain patterns we've been following for many years. This all happens at an unconscious level. The biggest problem of all is that we allow our current circumstances to influence our minds, and this all happens unconsciously. So on what does the realization of your dream depend? It depends on how you use your mind. The key lies hidden within yourself, and once you learn to use it, you'll open the treasure that contains a life of satisfaction, success, and happiness for you. If you now had a successful career, it boils down to a result. If you now achieved a certain weight goal, it boils down to a result. If you now earn more money than you ever did before, it's a what? A result. If you now have great capital, it boils down to a result. If you are now living the life of your dreams, whatever it is, it means you achieved a certain, that's right, result. Results, results, and more results. We cannot escape it. Let's be smart about this and figure out what causes results in the first place. It's our actions that determine the results. The realization of your dream depends on the forms of action you take. And these actions can only be inspired as long as we work with the true source within ourselves, our imagination. That is where it all starts. We can know for sure we're thinking from imagination once we think about new ideas, the ones that will get us closer to the realization of our dream. If you're having difficulty finding the right ideas in order to realize your dream, it's a clear indication you're not fully in harmony with your vision. Remember, it's important for thought and emotion to be in harmony with your dream. This powerful feeling of desire, once you unleash it by contemplating how your life will improve after realizing your dream, will make it easier for the right ideas to float into your mind. Everyone has some degree of experience with it. If we feel bad, are we thinking good thoughts? If we feel happy, are we thinking bad thoughts? Our emotions hold an enormous grip over the way we think. Once these two aspects work together, are in harmony with your imagination, that is when things truly start to change for you. If you're wondering the following, does he mean I have to let go of the physical world and completely give myself over to my imagination? Then my answer to this would be yes. It might seem insane, but this is what it all boils down to. The reason why it might sound insane is because it's almost like we're creating a delusion for ourselves. But if you work with this power the way I suggested, you aren't. The dictionary describes delusion as follows. Believe in something that is not true. He's under the delusion that he will be promoted this year. And then underneath you can find some words we use to describe a delusion. Now I want you to understand something else as well. A delusion to me is also like somebody that is saying or believing at some level of their being that they want to achieve something, but the biggest part of themselves doesn't believe it's going to happen at all. I call that being delusional as well. I mean, to me, that's kind of what it means. I know not everybody might agree on that, but it's kind of like the person who consciously, for example, thinks and says they believe they can achieve something, but subconsciously, emotionally, they're actually not believing at all. They're still doubting, they're still insecure about it, still kind of uncomfortable about this whole dream. Now what we want to do is getting thought and emotion in sync. We want to believe in both areas with such intensity that it transforms us from the inside out. We literally become a new person from the within. And then we're going to create new results. Then we're not being delusional at all. Now, as I said, we're working with our imagination, though this can be considered acting on the delusion of something. It isn't. What I'm talking about is definitely not something negative, such as a delusion. One is negative, a delusion. The other is positive, such as imagination. As a matter of fact, all objects created on Earth came from somebody's imagination. Since this is literally true, I'm assuming you're at least remotely interested in the power of your own imagination. I personally would consider having a delusion similar to daydreaming. It's something about which we imagine, but it doesn't create any emotional reaction at all. Therefore, it also doesn't generate any new ideas inside our minds. In other words, nothing happens. Our results stay exactly the same. If, however, we fully get absorbed in our imagination through thought and emotion, we'll discover a whole lot will change. Now this book, just like the previous one, including my company and any other activity I'm involved in, was first originated inside my imagination. I have a vision, I have the desire, I create the ideas in my mind and I take action. I don't call this being under the delusion of something. This term, as you can see earlier on, is also used to tie into fantasy. Now very funny, but the people that decided fantasy is tied to all of this probably didn't understand our true potential. Or even worse, they don't want you to figure it out. Well, I'll just assume they don't know anything about our potential to begin with, and therefore wrote it like that. The realization of our dream depends on the use of our imagination. It all depends on the way we imagine and to what degree we're able to let ourselves be influenced in thought and emotion by this fantasy. If we are able to let this happen, we'll automatically discover that it is possible to turn our dream into a reality. Now study the 4 steps given earlier in this chapter. Ask yourself, am I following these 4 steps in my own life? If not, start doing it right this instant. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Surely there must be people on this planet that inspire you, people that you look up to. Ask yourself, are these people acting with a clear vision? Are they manifesting the sort of results I want for my own life? If so, observe carefully how they operate and do things, and you'll discover great insights about these inner aspects to our own potential. Every person we call successful on this planet acts from their imagination. They dare to express themselves. They dare to show the world what they're all about and create stuff by using their imagination. You can do the same. Too bad most of us aren't unconsciously working in harmony with our imagination. In our case, we'll have to learn to do it deliberately and with intent. The benefit, however, is that you will learn to consciously work with this power so you can improve all areas of your life. People who work unconsciously with this great power of imagination might not understand how to use it in other areas of their lives. They might use it for one aspect, but fail to use it everywhere else. They may be successful in their careers, but they are drug addicts in their private lives and don't know how to overcome it by the power of imagination. They may be very rich, but feel alone and lonely. This too they could change by the power of imagination. Some might be enormously successful, yet they are depressed, which ultimately led to suicide. All because they just didn't know how to save themselves through the power of imagination from all the negative stuff in life. There's plenty of examples to find about people who might have had great careers, but their entire private lives were a giant mess, all because they didn't understand their own potential. These people can only use this power we're talking about unconsciously in certain areas of their lives. We, the ones that are studying this, are learning to apply this power in all areas of our lives. So be happy that all these ideas are now coming into your life, because it will change your life. Trust me, if you apply this information in your life, your whole world is going to change like night and day. You can't even comprehend how much it can improve once you start to act from imagination with deliberate intent. So then you won't be someone that unconsciously builds a successful career but doesn't know how to keep their private life balanced. No, then you can look at all areas from your life and approach it through imagination and improve it beyond, far beyond how it has ever been, ever before.